about second breakfast.
Time for second breakfast.
What's up, everybody? Monster from Breakdowns for Breakfast here with another second breakfast. Well, it was bound to happen at some point. I've done NuMetal guitar players. I've done NuMetal bass players. So now it's time to talk about NuMetal drummers. Now, I've played guitar in a lot of bands. I've played bass guitar in a lot of bands. I'm not a drummer. I've never been a drummer. I'm not good at drums. I don't know why. I've got decent enough rhythm, but I've just never been a drummer. So a lot of times when I'm listening to bands, sometimes the drums aren't something that jumps out at me very often. So what I did for this list was I tried to think of drummers that actually do make you pay attention. Drummers that when you're thinking about the reasons that you like these bands, the drums are a big part of that. And so what I thought would be fun, because, just like I did with my other two lists so far, I don't really want to do like my top 10 or the 10 best or the 10 greatest or whatever. Like I don't know. I don't like doing that. So what I did instead was I broke it down into two categories, nu and metal. And what I've done is picked 5 of my favorite drummers in broken down in 2 separate categories. The nu category, which these are 5 guys that I think have a lot of bounce and groove, and they're more associated with the rap metal bouncy side of nu metal. And then the second section, the metal section, are the guys that have a lot of power and a lot of force and speed behind what they do. Their bands are still generally considered nu metal far more than anything else, but there's a distinction. And I think when I start listing off these guys, you'll see what I mean. And I thought that was kind of a fun way to approach it. With all that being said, I also have one wild card at the very end that you could sort of put into either category. And I'm actually surprised we haven't talked about more on the show, because he's kind of connected to a lot of bands that come up all the time. So anyway, because I am the nu metal monster, we will go in nu metal order and start with the nu drummers. The first one I have listed, possibly could be considered the pioneer of nu metal drumming, would be David Silveria from Korn. He was on the first 7 Korn albums, especially now playing in Thoughtless, the Korn tribute band I'm in. It's given me a little bit of a different perspective on his playing, especially those first 2 albums. The self-titled and Life is Peachy, super loose. But David has so much groove and feel that it never goes off the rails. Even when you can obviously tell they're not playing to a click and you can feel it kind of speeding up and slowing down a little bit, it still feels grooving. It's still locked in. And obviously, he's got a very unique sound to his drums, but a big part of that too is also Fieldy being as clicky and sort of, he also adds to sort of the thumpy kind of rhythmic sounds of the drums on those first few albums. Not to take anything away from Ray Luzier, I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce his last name, who's also a great drummer. I've seen Korn with Ray, and he's really good, and he plays those old songs very, very well. But David had his own vibe. Like he definitely 100% had his own thing going that's never really been replicated. Number 2, John Otto. Take him to the Matthews Bridge. Had to. John Otto from Limp Bizkit, one of the absolute tightest, just most precise, groovy, bouncy drummers in all of rock and metal. I think I've talked about it before when I talked about Sam Rivers on bass. Because of the huge personalities you have with Fred Durst and Wes Borland, a lot of times the rhythm section in Limp Bizkit sort of got overlooked. But you best stand believe that Limp Bizkit would not have the success that they've had if it wasn't for those tight tight, bouncy grooves that John Otto would lay down on these tracks. And one thing that I wanted to point out, everybody knows his drumming on songs like Rollin' and My Way and Break Stuff. Like, obviously, big grooves, locked in, easy to nod your head to. But $3 Bill, y'all, is a very ugly, sloppy Ross Robinson album. And one of the things that keeps that album from those songs from ever going off the rails is how tight John Otto is. Because Wes, there's all kinds of weird stuff he's doing. Like, one of my favorite Limp Bizkit songs is called Counterfeit, and it's off the first album. It was like popular, but I think now they've got so many songs it's sort of gotten, lost in the shuffle. That main riff is like mostly harmonics. So it's like he's not even playing like actual notes. It's just noises half the time. And so between all the weird stuff Wes is doing, the DJ scratching, the tempos are going up and down, John stays locked in. And I think it's a bigger part of their success than I think a lot of people actually realize. Number 3, Morgan Rose from Sevendust. This dude is a beast, especially he's so versatile. That's one of the things that Morgan Rose has over some of these other guys. Not only does he have a great sense of groove, he gives Sevendust, between him and Lejeune on vocals, Sevendust, especially I would say on their first like 3 or 4 albums, has this like swagger about him that a lot of other nu metal bands just could not keep up with. I will say, in my personal taste, their most recent 2 or 3 albums haven't really done it for me. They've definitely gone more like mainstream butt rock kind of sound. They're killer at it. There's no reason not to, but I see them on tour with bands like Alter Bridge, and, they would do great with Creed or something like that, which, hey, I'm not mad about that. I like those bands too, but it's just, those first 3 or 4 albums, like the self-titled album had the song Black on it, which is a huge killer nu metal track. But then Home, songs like Denial, and then on Seasons and Animosity, there's all kinds of cool songs with a lot of, like I said, that sort of like sway rhythm that he's really good at. Plus, he's got good vocals. He can also add a little bit there. And then, not for nothing, not that it's a great album by any means, but he also is the drummer on Tommy Lee's rap rock solo, whatever you want to call it, Methods of Mayhem album, which again, kind of like another album I'm going to talk about later, in and of itself is not necessarily great, but it has cool things about it. So yeah, I put Morgan Rose on this list because I just think he's kind of underrated. Again, I think I would go as far as saying like the first 4 Sevendust albums are all like just really, really solid. All right, this one's a little bit more underground. Some of my nu metal heads that listen all the time, Ian, Cody, I'm looking at you guys. Y'all might know this name, but Justin Wilson from the band Reveille. Now, Reveille was never super mainstream. They had 1 or 2 MTV videos, and you might recognize just a smidge of one of their songs from our Breakdowns for Breakfast episodes, because the what you got that we always play before the what's new, what's cooking, that is from a Reveille song. They only did 2 major label studio albums. The first one was called Laced, and the second was called Bleed the Sky. And the grooves on those albums are really good. Never flashy. I think he was probably super young when they did these albums. I think everybody in that band was young. So it never goes anywhere like, you put it this way. I've listened to both those albums a ton of times, and I never once stopped and went, wow, I sure do love the drums on this song. But especially Laced. I know most people prefer Bleed the Sky, but there's something about Laced that I go back to that one more often. The drums, the rhythms on some of those songs are just so easy to your head just keeps moving, just up and down, and it just doesn't stop because it's just perfectly locked in with these just real chuggy power chord rap rock kind of riffs. It's not going to like alter your vision of reality. Like Danger says, if you weren't a fan of nu metal before, if you go back and listen to Laced and Bleed the Sky, will you all of a sudden have a revelation? Probably not. But for what it is, I think Justin Wilson's drums on those two albums are great. And number 5, and this is not a list, this isn't like whatever, it's just the 5th one that I have, is Abe Cunningham from Deftones. We talk about Deftones a lot on the show. Me and Danger have mentioned several times that we're not the biggest Deftones fans on the planet. I think I like them more than Danger does because I've kind of gotten to the point now where I'm over the fact that 30 years into a career, they've changed their sound. Like, I get it. And I'm never going to... I won't say that. Maybe one day they'll surprise me, but I can't see Around the Fur ever being dethroned as my favorite Deftones record. There's so many things I like about that album. But here's the thing. Abe Cunningham, you can say what you want about Chino. I've said a lot about Stephen Carpenter. He kind of gets on my nerves sometimes. But Abe Cunningham has always been consistent. Whether he's playing a bouncy, choppy groove like on those first 2 or 3 albums, or he's playing something real weird with a bunch of time signatures and stuff like on Hexagon. I mean, he's got a great groove to his playing. Even on their most recent album. So that's another thing. Every time Deftones releases an album, I will listen to it. I may never go back to it again, but I will at least listen to it one time to get a vibe off of it. And on this new album, I do not know how to pronounce this word. It's spelled Ecdysis. Isidsis? I have no idea. And then another song called Cut Hands. Both of those have like some real solid bounce and groove to it. So even though I don't necessarily always love Chino's vocal choices, Stephen Carpenter is not really one of my favorite guitar players, I think Abe Cunningham has stayed consistent pretty much from day one. I think his drumming is one of the best parts of Deftones. So there you have it. That's 5 nu metal drummers that I think really bring the groove and bounce of nu metal. Now, on to section 2, the metal guys. These are 5 nu metal drummers that I think are much more metal than they are groove. A lot more focus on double kick, playing really fast, maybe a little bit more proggy. And so we'll start here. Number 1, Joey Jordison. R.I.P. Joey. Slipknot. And I know we can kind of get in the weeds here. Some people consider Slipknot maybe their first album, maybe the first 2 albums nu metal, and then maybe more just like heavy rock or maybe heavy metal or whatever you want to call it. But you cannot deny that the first, specifically the debut album, I love Iowa too. I think Iowa, that's one of those albums I keep going back to, and every time I do, I'm like, I think I like this a little bit more than I originally did. But the first album specifically, the drums, again, I'm not a drummer. Drums usually don't stand out to me, but I remember putting that album on and like the first song after that weird intro, Sick, the drums on that, Joey has this way of being so chaotic and just hitting. It sounds like he's got 2 hands, 2 arms, and he's hitting 7 things at once. And I don't know how he does it, but it was just so much, but it rocked. Like it fit and it was tight. Similar, it was a Ross Robinson album. A lot of Ross Robinson albums have this sort of like loose sort of feel to them. And the first Slipknot album is no different. But again, in large part due to Joey, it stays tight and it stays brutally heavy. I mean, I know that, what's his name? Weinberg, I believe it was, came in and did a great job. I think his name is Elroy Casagrande, I think is his name, who's playing drums for him now. also really, really talented guys. They have to go back and learn Joey's stuff, so they're obviously really talented. But man, Joey's drum work on those first couple albums is just unreal. I still don't know how he did half of it. Number 2, I have Matthew Spag McDonough from Mudvayne. So if you like the intensity and visuals of Slipknot, but you also really like the bass lines from Seinfeld, boom, you got Mudvayne. In all seriousness, I've talked about Mudvayne a lot, and I think they sort of get, I don't want to say they're underrated, but I think because of the makeup and some of the lyrics, they sort of get, I don't know that they always get the respect they deserve. Ryan Martini and Matthew McDonough, unbelievable rhythm section. Those dudes have such a tight connection because, again, Mudvayne has a bunch of just weird time signature changes and stops and starts and all these different parts, but he is always locked in on the drums, and it sounds tight and it sounds smooth. Live, I will say, I've seen him live. I've seen him live once, but I had a couple of DVDs of like live concerts back in the day, and live it can get a little bit sloppy. But how the hell could it not? For as technical as these guys get, I mean, obviously it's going to get a little bit, sloppy here or there. It doesn't matter. Dude has a ton of power, and watching his feet while they're doing all these like weird time signatures and stuff in 6/8 is wild. So yes, absolutely, Matthew Spag, killer drummer. Mudvayne drums are just the rhythm. Okay, I've talked about every single guy in that band. Not so much Chad, because I haven't done a singers list yet. I would assume I probably will at some point. So, but yeah, Mudvayne's killer, man. Even if you don't like NuMetal, if you're a fan of anything like Tool or some of these slightly more recent bands like maybe like Gojira or Mastodon, a lot of that same kind of stuff comes from back there with Mudvayne. Number 3, John I think it's Dalmayan from System of a Down. Similar to Deftones, I'm not the biggest System of a Down fan. I had the first 2 albums. I liked them enough, but I never got super into them. But John's drumming is again, similar to the Limp Bizkit thing. There's a lot of big personalities in System of a Down, and especially with the lyric content as well. I think the drums get overlooked, and they shouldn't, because he's really, really tight. He has a way, out of all these drummers, he might be the best at stopping on a dime, going 100 miles an hour, and then just boom, stopping. A great example of this is the opening track on Toxicity, Prison Song, where it's just bum, 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 bum. Da, 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 da. Like it doesn't sound like it's not super complex or anything, but it's just so tight and precise. And he plays those parts with a lot of power. So I put him here in the metal category as opposed to the new category, because when I think of System of a Down, I don't typically think of like groove and bounce. But, you think of songs like Aerials and even Toxicity, where he's doing some more melodic stuff, and it does have a good groove. But again, Toxicity, a great example. Chop Suey, probably their biggest song ever. They have these moments where it goes from 100 miles an hour to just stop. And it flows. And a large part of that is just because the drums are so tight. Number 4, Raymond Herrera, the original drummer of Fear Factory. I've talked about Fear Factory on the show before. We'll probably do a Fear Factory album at some point. Herrera's drumming is... okay. Fear Factory's albums oftentimes are not necessarily concept records, but they all deal with like technology destroying humanity and the robots and machines taking over. And one of the things that really helps sells that for their sound is the kick drum, specifically on those first couple of albums. Now, I think I've heard some rumors that maybe some of that is triggers and it's not just his feet. I don't know. I'm not going to get in the weeds. All I know is what is on those records. The kick drum is insane. I've Fear Factory is another band very similar to Deftones where I have my Fear Factory period. Specifically for me, out of those first 5 records, there's a 3-album run: Demanufacture in 95, Obsolete in 98, and Digimortal in 2001. For me, yes, all 3 of those albums, very few complaints. Those 3 albums are gnarly. And a good example of what Herrera does on the kick that just adds so much to the Fear Factory sound. The song Shock that opens Obsolete is arguably my favorite Fear Factory song. And a major part of that is the intro. There's this drum intro that just gets you so hype. And then when it kicks in, it's a very simple, straightforward beat. But he does some stuff with that kick that just elevates the riff and just makes it so damn good. So, yeah, I think Fear Factory, another one of those bands that if you want to get nitpicky, is it more industrial? I feel like especially on that section of albums that I just mentioned, it's pretty new, especially Digimortal, because there's a song with the guys from Cypress Hill. They really lean into the bounce there, but those first couple albums are just brutal heavy, and the kick drum work is wild. At number 5, I've got Mikey Cox from Coal Chamber. Talked about Mikey on previous episodes. I've done, we did chamber music for the show, and then also did a little bit of a deep dive on Coal Chamber's history. Mikey, really solid drummer, and you could almost make an argument to put him in the other category because he does have a lot of groove. In honesty, I put him here because more of the way he performs live, because he just beats the hell out of those drums. If you're on the fence about Coal Chamber, watch some of their old live videos from like the early 90s, or excuse me, late 90s, early 2000s, like those Ozfest performances and stuff. Every single one of them goes so hard, and the drums are so powerful in those videos. But if you want to hear kind of like why I think he is such an important drummer, songs like Fiend off of Rivals, I think it is, one of their later albums, and then like the song I off of their self-titled debut, so much more intense because of what the drums are doing. Obviously, even the song Loco, it's a great mix of both just thrashy kind of drums with grooves mixed in. So I think Mikey Cox is another one of those, I don't want to say underrated guys, but again, you've got Dez with all the crazy piercings and facial hair and stuff. You've always got a pretty girl playing bass that I think Mikey and Meegs, the guitar player, sometimes sort of get overlooked a little bit. And like I said, I've talked about Coal Chamber a bunch. I really like that band. So anyway, so those were my 2 categories, my 5 and 5 there for new metal drummers. But I wanted to throw out one more guy, Shannon Larkin. Now, I'm kind of surprised that Shannon Larkin hasn't come up more often because, very similar to Josh Freese, this dude has been around the block. And he's sort of known for, specifically, he's been in the band Godsmack now since I think 2002. So, I mean, whether you like them or hate them, I've actually seen Godsmack a few times by accident. They were like the opening band. I saw them open for Metallica, and then I saw them open for Black Sabbath, I think it was. It's like I wasn't going for Godsmack. They were just there, and they were fine. I actually think they're better live than on the album. And I do think Godsmack's first couple albums are pretty good. But anyway, Shannon Larkin live, he is a lot of fun to watch. He's very animated. He's a real skinny guy, and so his arms almost just look like extended drumsticks, and he's waving them around, throwing them up in the air and stuff. But in addition to being the drummer for Godsmack for the past 20 plus years. He's also played with Ugly Kid Joe, Amen. He's toured with Candlebox, and he's played with Snot, and he's even done some session work for a bunch of bands, including Glassjaw. And one notable mention, he's also the drummer on the album Hard to Swallow, Vanilla Ice's NuMetal album. Now, I have threatened Danger with that before, and whether he likes it or not, we're going to do that album. I'm not saying I'm the biggest fan of it, but it's worth doing for the show just for fun. And there's a lot of big names on that album, especially from this universe that I live in with the NuMetal stuff. But yeah, so those are 10, 11 drummers that I think are really important to NuMetal and NuMetal bands and what makes NuMetal the sound that it is. Obviously, there's a lot of dudes I didn't mention that you probably think are better than some of the guys I mentioned. Who are they? Throw them out there. Who did I miss? Who would you replace? Let me know in the comments, and I hope you have a great day.